guys, Brett Weiss here. Welcome to another episode of Tales from a Retro Gamer. Once again, we have my nephew, Chris Davis, home from Okinawa, Japan. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. Good to be back in Texas.
Yeah, so I guess you've had some barbecue and Mexican food since you've been here.
Yes, barbecue, Mexican. Have I missed out on anything so far?
You have a gun yet?
Working on it. Oh, wait a minute. I could just walk in and buy one, right?
So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about Christmas. I can't remember. It's either 91 or 92. It was the very first Christmas I spent not in Arkansas with my family. Now, I live in North Texas, and my parents, my brother, my sister, everybody, we would always go up to Arkansas for Christmas with my grandma, and my cousins, aunts, uncles, all that stuff, and my grandfather. And it was always a wonderful, wonderful Christmas, good old-fashioned Christmas. But when I had the store in the early 90s, it was me and your dad, my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, Mike. We had this comic book store, and obviously with just the two of us owning it, we were tied down to this store. Retail, you're open all the time. You've got a lot to do. We didn't have employees yet. It was very early, in I think it was probably 91. Right. Very early on in the business, and it was just us two running the store.
I was too young still to get free labor out of.
Right. We hadn't put you to work yet.
Right.
You were just kind of wandering around the store reading role-playing game modules.
Well,
That store kind of turned you into a nerd.
Yeah, it turned me into all kinds of nerd.
Right.
Role-playing nerd was
comic book nerd. But we didn't have video games because back then in the 90s, early 90s especially, 80s, comic books and video games weren't really that crossed over as far as retail goes. You didn't see video games at comic book shows, and there weren't really video game shows yet, in the 80s and 90s, early 90s. And there really wasn't that much crossover. Like you'd go to big comic conventions, you wouldn't find video games. So we didn't have video games in the store, but we had all the other nerdy stuff, action figures and all that good stuff. And so we had these comic book store in the Fort Worth area in 1991, the early 90s. And that first year, 91, I believe it was, so I couldn't go to Arkansas for 2 or 3 days, with my parents or brother and sister or whatever. I had to be here to attend to the store. Obviously, we were closed on Christmas Day, but I didn't have the time to, be gone.
Right.
That store was our responsibility. We were just getting started, trying to make it grow. We couldn't shut down for a few days during the holidays, and that kind of thing. So you guys invited me to your Christmas, which we had at your grandma's house, which is, about 10 or 15 minutes away.
That is to say my dad, that is to say your brother-in-law's mother's
Yes,
house.
Mike's mom, my business partner's mother, and his father at their house. Yeah. I was invited by you guys, which was very gracious, very cool, that I could go have Christmas with you guys. And so before I get into that, this is gaming related, by the way. I'm going to talk about how a video game saved my Christmas.
Right.
And so
was it that bad?
It was actually a very pleasant afternoon. But before we get to Christmas Day at your grandma's house, let's talk a little about your grandma, because she was sort of a retro gamer, or still, she's still with us, and she likes computers, video games.
Strangely, she's always been kind of ahead of the curve on this stuff. Actually, so you wouldn't think to know her.
She just seems sort of like a typical grandmother,
from Texas.
From Texas, kind of grew up a Baptist and all that kind of stuff.
But when you'd go over to her house from the time I was a kid, she always had a pretty state-of-the-art computing device in her house.
And she would keep her older computers too.
That's right. So before we ever had a computer at my house, I think the first one we had at my house, incidentally, was a Commodore 64 that you and my dad used to play some games on. But she had a Tandy of some kind or another.
Yeah, like a TI-99.
Yeah, that was the first place I ever played, for example, Wolfenstein 3D was at my grandmother's house.
That's hardcore.
That was a step up from Bouncing Babies, which had been the sort of the state-of-the-art computer game that had been installed before then. But yeah, she
got you your Atari 2600.
She got me and the rest of the family, actually,
Atari
2600s. I think we mentioned this in the previous episode I was on.
Yeah.
She got addicted to Demon Attack and thought that everyone else should be equally addicted to Demon Attack.
Right, a Magic's hardcore shooter. Yeah, really great game.
Just little pieces of nerdery in her life. An entire collection of every Anne McCaffrey novel ever published, as far as I can tell.
Right, so your grandma had nerd cred.
Yeah, strangely enough.
Right, and always got along with your grandparents, not necessarily because of that, just because they were nice. And we would joke, when I would see them at different family events, we'd joke around a little bit. So I was totally cool with going over to your grandparents' house for Christmas with you guys. My sister and you and some other extended family, and your sister Kara, my niece, and it was a very pleasant afternoon. We had an excellent meal, It was a cold day, but it was nice, and we had a lot of fun, and a nice visit, joked around, just a good holiday. And there was going to be a gift exchange, the typical drawing of names. And I was just sort of shoehorned into this, Christmas Day, so I wasn't going to be part of the gift exchange,
Right.
which was perfectly fine with me. That that was agreed upon. I didn't care. I had plenty of stuff. If I wanted something, I could just go buy it, whatever.
Right.
But it kind of bugged me after a while. Or actually, I shouldn't say it bugged me. You bugged me. You don't remember.
I never.
So you would have been about 10 or 11 at this time. And throughout the day, you kept going, "Hey, Brett, where's your Christmas present? Hey, Brett, why don't you have a present? Hey, Brett." And then after, y'all did the drawing and everything, and it was fine. I was there. I said,
Right.
"Oh, cool. That's what you got. That's what you got."
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, Brett, where's your present?"
So
"Hey, Brett, where's your present? What'd you get?"
Well, where was your present?
No, don't traumatize me again. So that was kind of annoying, but
Right.
it wasn't a big deal. You're a kid, and you're gonna annoy people sometimes.
Well, I was a kid, but I'll just interject here and divert the conversation a bit towards myself.
Right. Please do.
Apparently, I certainly don't recognize this streak in myself, but it has been said to me by, for example, you, that I may have a bit of a not exactly trash talking, but
it is trash talking.
Is that trash talking?
It is. When we're playing video games, you say some things under your breath and over your breath, if that's the thing.
Around my breath.
Around your breath, over and through the breath.
Yeah.
You do a little trash talking.
Is it of that nature? Just a kind of constant.
It's semi-polite because
Right.
you don't like drop F-bombs or say anything personal, but you do kind of put the thumb in the eye a little bit, metaphorically speaking.
The gimlet in the
Indeed, you do.
thumb.
You turn the screw a
Yeah.
little. Yeah, you do. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so you are a little bit of a trash talker. So
Fair
you do
enough.
have
And I was at that age too. Apparently, I was
so
trash
the
talking
bottom
you
line
on
of this
Christmas.
episode, you can be annoying. That's what I want you guys to get from this. You can be annoying.
Your viewers would have never got that from my appearance.
Right. So anyway, so that afternoon, I had been around your family all day, which was fine. It was great. But I was ready to get out a little bit, just kind of get some separation, let you guys do your thing, because it was your annual Christmas tradition. So I stepped out a little bit, and I walked down, somewhere between a half mile and a mile down the road to a 7-Eleven. Now, obviously, convenience stores like this are open on Christmas Day because everybody needs, there's gas, emergency items, whatever.
Slurpees.
Yeah, you got to have a Slurpee on Christmas Day, essential. And so I walked down to 7-Eleven. And back then in the 80s, little mini arcades were absolutely everywhere. Whether independent arcades themselves, like just a little small closet of an actual arcade with maybe 10 to 20 to 30 games, or in stores everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Like convenience stores would have a little corner in the back somewhere with 2 or 3 or 4 arcade, upright arcade games and maybe a pinball machine. And the 7-Eleven was no exception, and they had Rastan. Now that was an absolutely phenomenal game put out by Taito or Taito, Taito, Taito I believe it
Is it a
is.
Japanese company?
Yeah, in
All right,
1987.
I'll resolve this. Taito.
Taito. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I've always known it as. But I've heard some people say Taito, like a potato or something. Maybe
Right.
Dan Quayle would call it Taito.
With an H at the end.
Right.
Sorry.
And so they had Rastan, which is just this, really cool scrolling fantasy adventure game, and it's pure action, which is what I like. There's a little stuff you have to figure out along the way, slight puzzle elements, but mostly just brute force action where you go along with a sword and then an axe and a hammer, and you can upgrade to a fireball throwing longsword. Just an excellent, Conan type game, a great power fantasy type game,
Right.
And Robert E. Howard probably would have played it had he lived that long. Just a fantastic game. So that was just such a great getaway, just from all the family stuff. And I was just, how it is when you've been around, sometimes you just need to get away
You've been
from
around
it
my
all.
family for that long.
Like I said, it was a pleasant afternoon, but I needed to get out of the house. Went and played some Rastan, and that was awesome, And it was a quarter gobbler, and so I was shoving quarter after quarter in Rastan. So I spent an hour or so right from there. It was great to get out of the house a little bit and just do something different and let you guys do your thing. So thank you, Rastan, for that. And
Thank you, Rastan, for
yes,
that.
thank you, Rastan. But another thing, so I actually, the first time I played Rastan was in 1989, a couple of years before that. I played it at the Bronco Bowl.
When did it come out originally?
Came out in 87.
87, okay.
And I distinctly remembered playing it in 1989 at the Bronco Bowl, which is a concert venue in Dallas. And so we were in Fort Worth area, and your dad actually, Now, some people might say ironically enough, but I believe it's coincidentally enough.
Okay.
I had gone with your dad to this Neil Young concert, and they had it was an incredible Neil Young concert. He comes out and does an hour of acoustic, and then goes into an hour and a half electric set. Just phenomenal.
Right.
One of the best concerts I've ever seen.
I was never taken to such a concert by either my uncle or my dad.
You've never been taken by your dad to a Neil Young concert?
Yes. I mean, no, I have not.
Well,
Yes, I have not.
It could still happen.
All right.
Maybe you're too annoying to take to a concert. But anyway, so I played Rest Stand. Bronco Bowl was great, as the name indicates. They had bowling and, a concert venue and a big arcade setup. It was just an awesome place. Played some Rest Stand there, so it was cool to see it again in that 7-Eleven, just this random game in a random 7-Eleven on some strange Christmas for the very first time in my life. Not being, my usual Christmas thing, so it was very cool to see that. And now I have Rest Stand on Taito Legends for the PlayStation 2. And it's
cool.
it's great that I can play it again and again and keep continuing without sinking a million quarters, and it's arcade perfect, and everything, and really nice to have that in my collection. And so thank you, Rest Stand, for salvaging Christmas of 1991 and for being in my PlayStation 2 collection today. So Chris, I really appreciate you being on. Now before we go, I'm going to read some comments from last week's video.
Okay.
And which was about the 1982 World's Fair. Now, you were born in 81.
I was.
And I'm assuming you did not go to the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville?
As far as I'm aware, I was not.
Okay, well, you'll need to watch the episode. Did you watch the episode?
I watched the episode.
Did you give it a thumbs up?
The fair or the episode?
The episode.
The episode I gave a thumbs up to.
And the fair a thumbs down?
Well, I have to be objective and neutral about that. I wasn't there.
Okay, all right. So I did get some comments on the episode. I asked you guys if any of you had been to the fair, and a guy named Jespal666. You would probably get along with this guy, being as evil as you are.
Well, that's another kind of nerdery that I got into as a young man, maybe under your influence. Started with Black Sabbath.
Being demonic, that was your thing.
Dungeons and Dragons,
oh,
heavy metal.
That's right. Yeah, very evil.
The works. Yeah.
All right. So Jespal666 says, living 100 miles away, we went several times. Even got that Pac-Man cube, referring to the Pac-Man Rubik's Cube that Carice had, that she mentioned in the episode. In the main pavilion was an arcade with the classic games of the time. It's really cool that he mentioned that, because Carice doesn't remember going to the arcade at that fair. She just doesn't recall it. She didn't see it. Maybe they just, it's a big fair. Maybe they just never saw it, or she doesn't remember.
Maybe it wasn't as salient for her as it.
Yeah, it just didn't make an impression.
Yeah.
He said the arcade took tokens, which featured the fair logo on one side and the games on the other. And he said he'd wish he'd kept a few of those tokens as a memento of that. That'd be really cool.
As a token of the
token, so to speak. Yes, you are a linguist, so very well putting that together. That was brilliant. Obvious but brilliant.
It's the reason he brought me on today.
Right. Now I've got another comment here I want to read. Now this is just this was a really nice comment from Ms. So. She says, "Yes, I've been waiting for you to have your wife on again." She goes, "Love her personality." As do I.
As do I.
You guys need to do videos together more often. One of the reasons I dig your channel is it has a more homey feeling to it. Now, homey, is that
Homie the Clown?
Is that a nice? is that sort of a nice euphemism for low budget?
Right.
Yeah. So, but seriously, she goes, "It's nice that you guys talk to us instead of talking at us, or literally yelling at the screen." Like I might be yelling right now. I don't know. She goes,
at
like
your nephew.
Yeah, like so I might have back then at the Christmas thing said, "Chris, shut up, quit." She goes, "Like so many other channels do. Also, you guys made me miss the South since I grew up in Georgia. It's just nice watching a gaming channel that has a more relaxed pace to it. You both have great chemistry with each other. It's always cool to see the two of you together." She may not say that about us.
Probably
on
not.
This channel, but thank you so much, Ms. So. I really appreciate that. Very nice comments. Now, speaking of you being on the channel and everything, the next time you were on, we're going to talk about the infamous Super Mario Brothers movie.
Right.
Now, when this movie came out back in the 80s, I was dating my wife, speaking of Carice, at the time, and we took you and Kara to see Super Mario Brothers at the movies.
I distinctly remember this.
Yes, and I remember you probably enjoyed it a little bit more than me and Chris did.
I think I may have.
Yeah, but
my critical eye had not been quite as well sort of cultivated at that point.
Right. Well, I've talked to people my age that like it and have a fondness for
okay.
it. So, but we'll talk about we'll watch it again before the next episode.
Absolutely.
And next time you're on, maybe the summer when you're back in town or something, we'll do an episode on Super Mario Brothers.
All right, and we'll pre-screen it for to refresh our memories.
Right. So getting back to this episode, if you guys have any bittersweet Christmas memories, maybe that are gaming related or otherwise, just a Christmas memory you have that maybe was pleasant in some respects or bittersweet in others. Chris, do you have any bittersweet Christmas memories?
Only bitter, I'm afraid.
Just bitter?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right, guys. So real quick before we go, I've got some new patrons to the channel, which I really, really appreciate. Kirk Haveman. It's Haveman. Haveman or Haveman, probably. Either way, we've got Michael Doherty, another new patron, and Shane Stein, the man who is the executive producer of the Game Chasers movie.
Oh,
he
cool.
subscribed to the top tier, which was really cool. Thank you for that, Shane. That is
Excellent.
awesome. It's patreon.com/Brett Weiss. If you want to check out my Patreon, you get lots of freebies. You get advanced articles, advanced book chapters, behind-the-scenes photos, behind-the-scenes information. I had a huge announcement this week that currently is on Patreon, so you guys might want to check it out. Thank you so much for watching the episode. Thank you for liking and subscribing to the channel. And thank you so much, Chris, for being on.
My pleasure.
So, Super Mario Brothers this summer?
Super Mario as it is. You have a copy of the movie you just showed us,
I've got
right?
the movie on DVD. We'll check it
Excellent.
out.
Looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Peace out.